Okay, so hello again. Hopefully you had a chance to watch the notes. I know they were super long, covered quite a bit of stuff on the polynomial video last time. But this is the next practice assignment if you have a chance to do it. So what I'm going to do is go over the problems. So hopefully you're looking at this after you've practiced, not before. I know some of you couldn't fully do the IXL work, or some of it might have been not quite so clear. So I'm going to go over all the practice problems. Of course, you only have to choose certain ones to do. So these are kind of just adding like terms. So this is the first set of things. So we're going to do up to number 8, but of course this says choose 3 of 1 through 6, so you only have to choose 3 here and choose one of these two. Those are nowhere near as big of a deal. So these are just adding like terms. So I see that I have 3x squared and I have 2x squared. So I would make that 3 plus 2 is 5x squared. Okay, and then I'm going to get a little bit closer here so that you can definitely see it there. That should be a little better. And then I have this negative 7x and this plus x. So negative 7 plus a positive 1, of course. So 1 minus 7 is minus 6x. And the last one is this 1 and a negative 8, and 1 minus 8 is, of course, negative 7. So 5x squared minus 6x minus 7. It does not have to be in that order, but that expression is now simplified. Hopefully you're noting also the beautiful colors, because that is also, of course, super important. Now, this one's a little trickier because it's subtracting this whole parentheses. So if you chose that problem, you may want to think of this as a plus a negative 1, or just realize that we're subtracting everything in that parentheses. So that's plus this negative 1b squared, then this becomes minus a 4b, and then a negative times a negative here is a plus 6. Okay, so that one's a little bit trickier. So when we combine the like terms, we're combining a 9b squared and a negative 1b squared, which gives me 8b squared. And then we're combining a negative 3b and a negative 4b, which gives me minus 7b. Okay, but we're now combining a negative 2, but since this was a negative times a negative, it ended up being a positive 6, and negative 2 plus that positive 6 is plus 4. So I have 8b squared minus 7b plus 4. Now this one's in a different order, but it's a plus in between the parentheses, so we don't have to worry about subtracting anything. And I didn't do any problems actually where there were parentheses and subtraction, so that's a little bit trickier. It doesn't really matter which one you start with. If you prefer to just start with the first one on the left, I think that's probably easier. So I have this 16, and that can combine with this negative 10 over there, and 16 minus 10 is 6. Okay, and then I'm also able to combine the negative 4m squared and a positive 5m squared. Okay, 5 minus 4 gives me 1, so plus 1 or just plus m squared is fine. And then the very final piece is that this 2m minus 3m is a minus 1m. Now, if you prefer that it's not in that order, you prefer the squared first, that's fine. It really doesn't matter what order that problem is in. So if you chose this next one, so this one has a minus in front of the parentheses. So just like any subtraction where you are subtracting everything in the parentheses, we're going to make everything, we're going to distribute that to each one of these like we did last year. Okay, so this becomes a squared minus 12 minus that a squared. Negative times a negative makes it plus 4a. And then negative times this positive makes it minus 2. So then, when I do a squared minus a squared, that just kind of crosses out. So those are gone. Okay, this negative 12 and this negative 2 become a negative 14. And then the poor little 4a doesn't have anyone to add with, so we just do plus 4a. 4a minus 14 would be the reverse of that. Whoops, sorry. There you go. Okay. So that's how you would do that problem. On this one, we have a minus again in front of the parentheses, and this time I'm just going to change this to a plus and make everything in the parentheses the opposite of what it was. So it's going to be a negative 4x now and a positive 5 because everything in the parentheses was being subtracted. All right, so 2x squared doesn't have anything to combine with, so I'm just going to rewrite the 2x squared here. The 3x has a negative 4x to combine with. So 3 minus 4 is a negative 1, so minus 1x. And the negative 18 has a positive 5 to combine with, so negative 18 plus 5 is minus 13. Okay, last one here. So p cubed plus p cubed. So I have these two that I can combine. It's a plus in between, so everything just remains the same. P cubed plus p cubed is 2p cubed. 2p squared, plus 8p squared is 10p squared. I have nothing to combine the 4 with, so I just say plus 4. And I have nothing to combine the 7p with, so I just say plus 7p. So there's my solution to that one. Now, these are not super important, but I think they were kind of neat. So if you chose one of those, great. If not, that's also fine. I hope you chose the first one because it's a far easier problem than the second one. So if I know I'm going to add something to this 4x squared to get this 5x squared, hopefully we realize we need to add 1. So we would add 1x squared. Okay, now if I need to add something to this negative 7x and I need to result in 5x, negative 5x, I'm going to need to add 2x. And 11 plus what gives me 15? Hopefully it is 4. That problem's not too bad. The other one, you need to think about the opposite of what you would want to do because I'm going to subtract something to get 8. So from 5e squared, I need to subtract something to give me 8. So what I really need to do is add 3, right? But if I need to subtract it, the plus 3 would have to be a minus a negative 3. So, minus negative 3e squared. For the 12e, I have to add nothing. Or, no, I don't. I have to subtract 12e to get rid of 12e. Here, I have no e's left. So, I would just do a positive 12e, because that becomes 12e minus this 12e. Okay, now over here, I have a negative 3 minus what would give me a positive 1. So what I need to do is get from negative 3 to positive 1. So negative 3 plus 4 gives me a 1, right? Whoops. So here, if I need plus 4, I really need minus a negative 4 because this has a minus in front. So negative 4. That one confused you. Don't worry too much about it. To be honest, none of this will be on any assessment. So if you're super concerned about it, this is kind of the extra unit that we probably won't have time to get to now. All right, so that's the first set of problems. Now, if you're choosing 4 of 1 through 14 on the second set of problems, we're just going to simplify each of these. So we're just going to multiply. So 7 times 2x, 7 times 2 is 14. The answer is 14x. You're done. Okay, 8 times 6 is 48. And from our previous unit, a times a should be a squared. You're all done. Okay, this is really more work from the previous unit multiplying these other than some of the later ones. So here you have 3 times 4, which is 12. And remember m squared, and the m cubed, we're just going to do 2 plus 3, which would give us m to the 5th power. Okay, now here we have a negative, so our answer, negative times a positive, is a negative. Negative 1 times a positive 12 is, of course, a negative 12. R cubed times r to the 4th is r to the 7th. Okay, now this problem is just distributive property. Most of this is actually more review than anything else. So 5 times e and 5 times 14. 5 times e is 5e. 5 times 14 is 50 plus another 20, so it is 70. Same thing here. 6 times d and 6 times negative 9. So 6 times d is 6d. And then 6 times that negative 9, 6 times 9 is 54, but it's a minus 54. Plus negative would, of course, be fine. Now, on these problems, you just did the distributive property 3 times. So 1, 2, and 3. So 3y times y is 3y to the third power, because this is, of course, y to the first. 3y to the first times a negative 2y is negative 6y to the second power. And 3y times 1 is plus 3y. Now these get a little bit trickier here. We don't have any a's here, so we just leave the a's. But we can combine some b's. So 11 times 2 is 22. Now we still have the a. I prefer to write it first kind of alphabetical order. It doesn't actually matter. But b cubed times b squared is b to the fifth. 2 plus 3. And then this one here, we can't combine anything, but we can write the plus. 11 times 7 is 77. And we just write a b cubed, or b cubed a is fine as well. The order does not matter. Okay, continuing through here. And gosh, I shouldn't have worried about these problems. Actually, let's just cross those 2 off because those are super tricky. So we're going to skip those. Hopefully you didn't choose them. If you did, I'll write down the answer and give it to you, but I'm not going to worry too much about going over the work. 9r and negative 3r, 9 times negative 3 is negative 27. R to the first times r to the fourth is r to the fifth. And then 9 times negative 8 is minus 72, and we just have r to the first, or just r. Okay, this one here, 2bc times 4bc squared, and it's a negative 4bc squared, so it's a negative 8. b times b squared is b to the third. C times c is c squared. Okay, this one we'll go ahead and do, and this one too, because I like that one. These last two, I'll just give you the answer, but don't worry too much about the problems. Get it off, cat. All right, so 7mn times this 1m squared, negative 7mn. So it's negative 7m, and this is m to the first plus 2, so m to the third, and then just n. So I multiplied that first one. Now I'm going to multiply the second one. So negative 7 times a positive 2 is negative 14. M to the first times another m to the first is m squared. And n to the first times another n to the first is n squared. And the very last one, I'll change color so maybe you can actually see what I'm doing. So negative 7mn times that negative 3. Now negative times a negative is going to give me a positive. And negative 7 times negative 3 gives me a positive 21. M, and then in this case, n squared. Okay, the next one. So let's change color so you can actually tell. Yeah, sorry about that. I think I definitely would skip those. So 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 6 is 12. 5 times x is 5x. And 5 times negative 4 is negative 20. So then you would just need to combine them. 2x and 5x is 7x. 12 minus 20 is minus 8. Sorry, there you go. All right, so these two are just kind of like the last two problems, and you certainly are capable of doing them, but let me just kind of write what each piece would be. 10 times x squared would give you, actually, let me get a pen that's a little less used so I can try to write a little smaller. 10 times x squared would give you 10x squared. 10 times 3x would give you 30x. 10 times 2 would give you plus 20. Negative 4x, times that x would give you minus 4x squared. Negative 4 times the 8 would give you minus 32. And then the thing is, you're going to have to combine any like terms you can. So in this case, we can combine the 10x squared minus the 4x squared, giving me 6x squared. The 30x doesn't combine with anything, so we'll just say plus 30x. And then the 20, positive 20, and then negative 32 will combine to give you negative 12. There you go. This one's kind of similar, but quite a bit higher powers, but nothing other than that. So the exponents will be higher. So a squared times a to the third is a to the fifth. A squared times 4a is 4a cubed. And a squared times that negative 7 is negative 7a squared. Then the other piece, so the a cubed times the negative a squared is minus a to the fifth, which means those two things are going to cancel. And then the a cubed times the negative a is minus a to the fourth. And the very last one, a cubed times that positive 4 is plus 4a cubed. Okay, so within that problem, we can cancel out the a to the fifth and the negative a to the fifth because those make 0. We have a 4a cubed and a 4a cubed, giving me 8a cubed. We have a minus a to the fourth here, so minus a to the fourth, and then a minus 7a squared. So you could write it like that. For those of you who feel more comfortable writing them in descending order, this would also be fine. It really doesn't matter. The answer is correct either way. Okay, so 2 of 15 through 20. I'm going to go ahead and hopefully we'll try to do the easier ones here. So 6abc, if I want to get negative 12 from that, I would multiply that by a negative 2. If I want a times something to give me a squared, I'm going to have to multiply by another a. B times something to give me b squared, another b. And c times something to give me c cubed, it would be c squared. Okay, so in this second case, if 3 times x gives me 3x, so plus what? Plus 7. And that would be it. In this third case, I see that 5m times that plus 3 already gives me 15m. So 5m times what will give me the 15m squared? Just an m. Again, in 18, this one's also relatively self-explanatory. A squared times a to the third does give me a to the fifth. So a squared times what would give me 5a to the fourth? It would be 5a squared. Now, this one gets a little bit trickier, but not actually by much, because 4y times what would give me negative 12y? It's a negative 3, and you'll notice that negative 3 times 6 also gives me negative 18. So I'm done with that problem. And the last one actually isn't too bad either. So I need to get from x squared to x cubed y. So I need another x. And then with the y squared, I'm also going to need a y squared. So now let's make sure if I multiply that by x, I get this, and I do. So there's the final answer. So these were kind of working backward ones. Hopefully they weren't too tricky for you. All right, I am much more concerned about these types of problems. So when you multiply these through, and only up till 13, I don't really want you to worry about the one with the square root. All right, so the u plus 3 times u plus 10. Now, we're going to use this algorithm, the first, outer, inner, last. So remember, first, outer, inner, and last. Okay, so you multiply the first two numbers, u times u gives you u squared. You multiply the outer two, u times 10 gives you 10u. You multiply the inner two, 3 times u gives me plus 3u. You multiply the last two, 3 times 10 gives me plus 30. Now, the only thing I need to do now is add the middle two terms. So I have u squared, 10 plus 3 is 13. And there's your final answer. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing basically for all of these problems. I'll just keep changing colors. So x times x gives me x squared. X times negative 5 gives me minus 5x. Negative 4 times x gives me minus 4x. And be careful about your last two. Negative 4 times a negative 5 gives you a positive 20. So then when we combine the middle two terms, x squared, negative 5 plus a negative 4, minus 9x, and then plus 20. Okay, same thing for this next one. e times e gives me e squared. Outer, e times 1 gives me plus 1e. And it really doesn't matter what order you do them in. You just have to remember to do all four. Negative 2 times e gives me minus 2e. And then that negative 2 times that positive 1 gives me minus 2. Okay, so when I combine the middle two terms, I get e squared minus 1e, or just minus e, minus 2. Okay, and we're just going to kind of keep doing the exact same thing. Y times y gives me y squared. Y times negative 4 gives me minus 4y. 6 times y gives me plus 6y. And 6 times that negative 4 gives me minus 24. Okay, again, when we combine the middle two terms, we'll get y squared plus 2y minus 24. Okay, now on this next problem, the only difference is I now have a 2a, so I have to multiply everything that I multiply by that problem by 2. So 2a times a is 2a squared. Okay, when I do outer, 2a times negative 7 is minus 14a, because 2 times 7 is 14. Okay, and then when I do the inner 2, 1 times a is 1a. And then when I do the last 2, 1 times that negative 7 is minus 7. Okay, and I'll combine the middle two terms. So 2a squared, negative 14 plus a positive 1 is minus 13a. And then this negative 7 is all that's left. So there's my answer. Okay, next one. 3b times 4b is 12b squared. Oh, forgot I was doing it over here to combine the middle terms. 3b times the 2 is 6b. 6 times that 4b, 6 times 4 is 24. And then the 6 times the 2 is plus that 12. Okay, so now when we combine whatever we can, we'll have 12b squared. And 6 plus 24 is 30b. And then plus 12. Okay. Going to kind of just keep doing all these problems up to 13. If, of course, you can always, once you've chosen your 4 and you're already past them, please feel free to go to the next spot. X times x is x squared. Outer is x times 7, which is 7x. Inner, which is negative 7 times x, which is minus 7x. And last, negative 7 times positive 7, which is minus 49. Now, these two are going to combine to give me 0, so my final answer is just x squared minus 49. If you wrote x squared plus 0x minus 49, that is perfectly fine. Okay, so next problem. R squared times r, same procedure. R squared times r is r cubed, though. And then r squared times 4, which is the outer, is 4r squared. Inner is 3r times r, which is 3r squared. And last, which is 3r times 4, which is 12r. Then I'll combine what I can. I can't combine anything with the r cubed. I can, however, combine the 4r squared and the 3r squared, giving me 7r squared, and then plus that 12r. Okay, last few problems here. So 4m times 4m, 4 times 4 is 16, so that's 16. M times m is m squared. And then 4m times that negative 7 is minus 28m. Times the positive 7 is plus 28m. And then 7 times negative 7 is minus 49. Now you'll notice that these two middle terms are the same, but they're opposite, so those are going to cancel out. So you're going to have 16m squared minus 49. Or, again, if you wrote 16m squared plus 0m minus 49, that's also fine. Okay, couple more problems here, 3 more problems, and then a little bit left to go over all the work, if you were able to get through all of it. All right, 3a times 2a is 6a squared. 3a times that 8b there, negative 8b, is negative 24ab. And then b times that 2a is plus 2. And I'm going to write it in the same order just to make it less confusing, 2ab. And then b times the negative 8b is minus 8b squared. Okay, so in this case, I can't combine anything but the middle stuff, so I'm going to do 6a squared, negative 24 plus a positive 2 is minus 22ab, and then minus 8b squared. Okay, and I just wrote it in the order that I had it. It doesn't matter what the order is. Okay, last two problems that were options if you chose them. So 2u squared times that 6u is 12u to the third power. Then outer is 2u squared times the negative 2v, which would be minus 4. And I'm just going to write it in the order of u squared v, just to kind of keep everything consistent. When I do the inner, 3 times 6 is, well, negative 3 times 6, excuse me, is minus 18. U times u is u squared. And there's still a v here. These got a little bit tricky. And then the very last, negative times a negative is a positive. 3 times 2 is 6. U times no u is just u. And then v times v is v squared. Okay, now I can combine the middle terms. So that gives me 12u cubed. Negative plus a negative is still a negative. Negative 22u squared v. And then plus 6uv squared. Okay. And then the last problem I would write out as, instead of writing p plus 3q squared, I would just add in a second p plus 3q, because that's what that means. It's being multiplied by itself. So p times p is p squared. P times 3q is plus 3, I'll start with the p, I guess, pq. Again, this 3q times p is also plus 3pq. And then the 3q times the 3q is 9q squared. Okay, so the final answer here is p squared plus 6pq plus 9q squared. Oops, sorry, there you go. Okay, very last set of problems. And it said choose 2. And these are basically the exact same as the previous ones. We would just write d plus 5. And then instead of writing, here, I'll actually just, even since there's so much room, it's just d plus 5 times d plus 5. Okay, and then you're going to do d times d, which is d squared, d times 5, which is 5d, the other d times 5, which is again another 5d, and then the last, which is 5 times 5, which is 25, giving you d squared plus 10d plus 25. Okay, and these are all going to work the same way. So this one, I'll write it out again, would be b minus 6 times b minus 6. Okay, and when I do the b times the b, I'm going to get b squared. B times the negative 6, which is minus 6b. This negative 6 times that b, which is negative 6b. Sorry if they all look the same. And then the negative 6 times the negative 6, which is plus 36. Because the negative times the negative is a positive. And we would combine those middle two terms, which is b squared plus 12b plus, whoops, sorry, not plus, excuse me, minus 12b plus 36. Okay, negative plus a negative is a negative. All right, so last 3 problems, and then you can call it a day. 2x minus 7 times 2x minus 7 2 times 2 is 4, so we would have 4x times x being x squared. Negative 7 times 2 here is minus 14x. This other negative 7 times 2 is also minus 14x. And then the negative 7 times a negative 7 is a positive 49. So this would be 4x squared, avoiding the issue I had last time. A negative plus a negative is a negative, minus 28x plus 49. Last two problems. So we've got 3e plus 1 times another 3e plus 1. Okay, 3 times 3 is 9e squared. Well, 3 times 3 is 9. E times e is e squared. 3e times 1 is plus 3e. 1 times 3e is plus 3e. And 1 times 1 is 1. So 9e squared plus 6e plus 1. Okay, very last problem, and then this whole assignment will be done. 4a plus 7, so we would do 4a plus 7 times 4a plus 7. And 4a times 4a is 16a squared. Well, and 7 times 4a here is 28a. This 7 times 4a is also 28a. And the 7 times the 7 is 49. So then when we combine the only two like terms we can, we get 16a squared. 28 plus 28 is 56. And plus 49. So there you go. Hopefully you were able to practice some of this. At this point, we'll be done with all the lessons before spring break. So enjoy your spring break.